So hello everyone, welcome back to Oliveboard's Agri Coaching, and today we are taking one more chapter which is very important for our IBPS AFO examination. This particular chapter is Agricultural Extension Education. Okay, so Agricultural Extension Education, when I am talking about, try to understand this is a very important chapter. Okay, so not only just it is important for AFO exam per se, but Agriculture Extension Education is included in syllabus of all the important agricultural exams. Okay, so it may be AFO, it may be NABARD, it may be regional SOs, okay, or it may be even your other agricultural competitive exams. Okay, considering that, let's directly start our discussion on what this topic today we are going to learn about. First thing which we are going to see in this particular lecture, of course, it is related to our history of our agricultural extension in India. Okay, now many of the people would be having doubts, sir, what is this agriculture extension education? Sir, please explain that first to us, and then we will get down to everything. But first let us look at the content, what we are going to see. So the summary content which I am telling is, first is history we are going to see of agricultural extension. Concepts of extension education, that time we will understand in depth what do extension education means. Principles of extension education, extension versus development, pre-independence and post-extension and rural development programs, steps in program planning, and extension institutes. Okay, so these are all the points which we will be covering in throughout this particular lecture. Now try to understand here. If you look at extension education in agriculture, there are three important stakeholders or three important factors very essential to overall agricultural extension education. First is research, second is farmer, who is very important stakeholder, and then is extension. Okay, what do you mean by the word extend? What do you mean by the word extend? So for example, if this is a particular area, extend means what? Extend means to cover a particular area then larger. Okay, so extend means to stretch out. Okay, so for example, suppose you are having a rubber band, and that rubber band you are stretching that rubber band till here, and if I tell you extend that, so what you will be doing, you will be stretching it more. So extend is nothing but stretching out something. Okay, so in similar fashion, let's try to get into depth what do you mean by extension education. So first we will be discussing about history of extension education, but before that we should understand what do extension education actually means, and that is why I will first start our discussion with the education itself. What do you mean by education? Okay, now we all know, okay, since our childhood we have been brought up into kindergarten, then from our first standard, second standard, third standard, then getting into your secondary, higher secondary, then going to college. So education is nothing but it's a collate of all the information, learnings, okay, understandings, and when you are learning or maybe adapting or maybe absorbing all these things, again it is also maybe validated through the different exams. So that is nothing but overall the picture of education which you get. But let's try to understand what is actually the definition of true education. So it is a process. Process means it's a process or it's an activity of developing capabilities. Capabilities in the sense what? To make a person capable that he would be able enough to do a particular activity, to do a particular process on his own of all the individuals, so that they can adequately respond to their situations. So education is not something which out of the syllabus you are teaching the students just to get marks, just to get grades, just to pass from one particular class to the second. Education is not this. Rather, education is what? Education is about learning, understanding, adapting, developing such capabilities through all these things in such a way that tomorrow if any situation comes in front of that particular individual, then that particular individual adequately can respond, adequately can change, adequately can manage, and adequately can even tackle that particular situation. So it makes a person capable, empowered enough to handle their own life problems also, personal problems, professional problems, everything in life, that is to make your life better. This is what the meaning of education is. I hope you get it. There are many things which even I told from my side, and that is the holistic definition of the education when we even go into the depth, or when you look at the research education definition. Now, when we look at the classification of education, try to understand there are three classifications: informal education, formal education, and non-formal education. Let's start our discussion when we were all babies. Babies in the sense we were all children. Am I right? Okay. So let's start our discussion when we were all babies. So when we were all babies, right, we learned many of the things. Okay. So you take a small child, as it grows from 6 months, then 1 year, then 2 year, step by step it starts walking, then it starts talking, then initially our parents feed us, right? But then after being of 1 year or 2 year, that particular small child tries to eat with with her or his own hands. Now, who teaches that particular child to walk? Who teaches that particular child to talk? And who teaches that particular child to eat? Of course, it's our parents. But is there any syllabus to it? No, there is no syllabus. Is there any test which we look at our children that, come on, you walk from this point to this point, then only you are passed? No, it's not like that. So all such learnings, all such understandings, or maybe all such capabilities which are developed, and these all learnings, this development of capabilities are lifelong processes. That means what? Once you learn it, you carry it throughout your life. For example, walking. Since childhood, when I was small, my mother taught me to walk, right? Or maybe I holded my father's and my mother's hand, and I tried to walk, and still today, see, I am walking. So it's a lifelong process which I have learned. Similarly, my parents have taught me to eat, and today, with the same skill which I got since my childhood, same way I will be eating my food. Am I right here? So in this way, whatever lifelong processes are there which are essential and which we carry those processes till our deathbed, those all processes which we learn where without any formality is there, no any structure is there, okay, but these are survival and natural in nature. Natural in the sense what? Look at the informal education which we look at, okay. So these are taught by either our surroundings, these are either taught by our parents, even these are taught by our friends. Now experience also teaches us. For example, suppose, just remember, one day you slept a lot, you became late because then you went to your class or maybe to your job, and therefore there you had to, of course, pay through anything, or maybe you had to suffer as you were not punctual enough or you were late enough. So experience teaches you the importance of time, okay. Once you are actually learning the importance of time or punctuality, then automatically, of course, this is also a lifelong process. Because is it like this that once you understand, okay, waking up is early or going at some place at a time, it is very, very important. You don't throw such important habits, you carry it along with yourself. So here is how experience has taught you something. Now again, this experience would have taught you something that would be either good or either bad. For example, good experience teaches something good. Bad experience, of course, those also there is very high chance that they can teach us good. But not all the experiences will teach us good. Sometimes they can even teach you something bad, okay. For example, for a simple, that one story you would have heard it during your childhood. What was that story? A thief is there, since childhood he is stealing the things from here and there. The mother does not scold him, and when that thief grows into adult, and when he becomes a big thief and he is into the prison, he calls his mother and he bites her ear, and he says to her that during childhood, if you would have stopped me, then today I wouldn't have been here, right? So what is this? At this particular story, for this thief, whatever his experiences were there, okay, so one time he stole, he felt very good, then second time he stole, he felt very good, and then he kept on doing those wrong things. So experience can teach you either good things, wrong things, but At the end, that's a teaching. So always remember, in informal education, there is no any guarantee that you may learn something authentic, you may learn something right or wrong. For example, we are having many of our friends. Some of our friends always teach us something better for our well-being. Some of our friends that do not teach us something for our well-being, but rather they sometimes unconsciously misguide you. Okay. For example, maybe a friend who is telling you that don't study, let's cheat into the exam, right? Now this is also a thing which you are learning. Okay. So therefore, here in informal education, always remember, there is no any formality, there is no any syntax, that is, there is no any structure, there is no any syllabus, there is no any exam, but most importantly, there is experience. In the sense, either through your positive or negative responses, you would be learning such things from experience, from your people who are surrounding you, from your parents, friends, etc., etc. So informal education is nothing but which you informally learn throughout your life, and you continue with that particular learning. Then comes formal education. Now always remember, the most structured and formal type of education is called as formal education. Now there would be a particular syllabus according to your age, there would be a particular test, there would be a particular exam, and there would be a particular degree. When you will clear that particular exam, you would be given some degree, you would be given some certificate, so as to make you realize that you have completed this particular formal education. So formal education is nothing but it is guided, or maybe it is framed in such a way that this is certain syntax, or this is particular set of education which we have to give this particular student. Imagine this, for example, you suppose you are having a niece, or maybe your child, or maybe yourself, you can look at. Okay, so here we are looking at, you are preparing for a competitive exam. For this particular competitive exam, a syllabus has been given, qualification has been given, notification has been given. You will clear this exam in stages, and then only your name will come in your final list, and then you will get a degree. And what that degree is, it is nothing but your call letter through which you will become an AFO officer. Okay. Now similarly, suppose there is a child who is in first standard. Now for that first standard child, of course, syllabus is according to the syllabus which we have to give for a first standard, or maybe that aged student. Okay. Now according to the syllabus, other topics also associated would be there, subjects associated would be there, and according to all those subjects, your tests would be there and exams would be there. Overall, whatever duration is there of this particular first standard, maybe 1 year. As we know, every standard, every learning which we take in our schooling system. So why schooling system is the most formal education? Because here a proper formal syntax has been given per unit particular period. So according to the period, according to different periods or time. Okay, for example, in 1 year you complete first standard, then second year third standard, then second standard, then third standard, fourth standard, fifth standard. In this way, step by step, you go on completing your particular syllabus which you have to complete or learn in that particular age. And that only, you just don't read that, you read that, you give the exam, you clear the exam, and then you go to the next step. So formal education is nothing but where all things are formal, syntaxed, there is a particular syllabus, exam, you have to clear that exam, and most important thing is that here highly professional individuals teach you. There is very less chance that here whatever you have been taught, it would be less authentic, and here there is very high chance that whatever you have been taught, that is taught according to a recognized syllabus, recognized institution, and therefore most of the learning here are not good, bad, but rather right. Okay, what things are right, what things are true, and what things are correct, those are only taught in your formal education. Most of the schooling education, secondary, higher secondary, college, which come out of recognized institutions, that is your formal education. Then comes non-formal education. So therefore extension education, it's called your non-formal education. What do you mean by non-formal education? Now always remember one thing, it is a formal type, it is a education in which the learning is not formal. Okay, so non-formal education is nothing but it is such type of education where learning is not formal, but still it is taught without any syllabus, without any formality, without any structure, but most essential skills and experiences are taught in your non-formal education. I'll give you an example. For example, suppose take a kid who is in first standard. For that first standard kid, what are the good habits, what are the bad habits that are taught in your informal education by the parents of that particular kid. So mother and father teaches him what is right, what is wrong. So stealing is wrong, okay. Similarly, eating properly, okay, respecting elders. These are the things which are informal. There is no any test, there is no any syllabus to tell a student that respect the elder, okay. Then comes the formal education. For example, this small kid goes into first standard and there he is learning, of course, basics of the alphabets or anything, language he is learning, maths he is learning, right? Basics he is learning. Now this formal education is nothing but through institution in which a particular syllabus is there. He will learn that and he has to give the exams so as to qualify and go to the next step, that is second standard, right? Now for the same student who is in first standard, imagine that now I have to teach him swimming, okay. Now the school teachers cannot teach him swimming, neither the parents can teach him swimming. For example, let's take an example that the parents are not knowing how to swim, okay. So therefore he needs non-formal education when he needs to swim. Now in swimming there is no any syllabus. Is there any syllabus that you have to first jump, then come outside, then you have to do race, then you have to do some acrobatics and practice? There is no any syllabus. For every individual, swimming could be taught in different ways. Second thing, there is no any institution responsible, okay. For example, you can learn swimming through your friends also. You can learn swimming through an proper swimming trainer also. You can learn swimming through your relatives also, or maybe a guide also. So in this way, non-formal education is nothing but something which you learn outside the institution, that is outside your schooling system, outside your educational system, outside these walls. So extension education comes from the word that only, when you learn something, when you assimilate the knowledge, when you understand, when you learn, when you adapt, when you develop your capabilities, but not inside the four walls of your educational system, but outside through experience, outside through practical. So in non-formal education, most of the things which are practical in nature, those are taught. For example, sports, for example, swimming, okay. Then experiments, okay, science experiments, these all will fall in your non-formal education. So for example, trekking, running, okay, exercise, all these things are non-formal education. Now the subtle difference between non-formal and informal education, what is it? In informal education, again, in informal education there is no any certificate, okay, and more importantly, whatever skill you are learning in informal education, nobody even will ask you that do you know this skill or not. These are the basic things which you should know, otherwise your survival becomes very, very difficult. In non-formal education, of course, people will ask you, do you know swimming? People will ask you, do you know how to run? Okay, people will ask you, do you know how to play volleyball, football? So in this way, this non-formal education guarantees that you can learn extracurricular, okay, practicality as well as experiential things from outside the purview of actual formal education. This is particularly non-formal education, and therefore extension education falls in this only. So we all know that particular agriculture as a subject, when you are looking at this particular subject, could be learned from books, from your school, from your universities, from your graduation, post-graduation. But more essentially, this subject could be learned on the fields also. This subject can be learned from a poor farmer also, who is doing his plowing in the field. So therefore, learning something from the field, from the practical experiences, learning by doing the things rather than reading the things. So first you do the things, first you do the practicals, first you work on field, you get the experience, and then you make the theories out of it, then you make the postulates out of it, then you make the principles out of it. So always remember, formal education is nothing but when you read something, you read the principle, you read the concept, you read the theory, and then you make the practical. For example, Newton's law. You learn the third law of Newton, that is every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and then you do the practical of how third law of Newton would be applied on in any case in our physical surrounding. But totally opposite is non-formal or extension education. First you do the practical, that means first you plant the crops, you see how those crops are growing in your field, and then you take a call that okay, suppose I plant this particular crop in this particular climate, in this particular season, then this crop is not growing fast and rather insects are attacking. So therefore from there you can make a particular note, and from that you can make principles, concept and theory that this particular crop should not be grown during this particular season, and the reason is this particular insect attack. Okay, so in this way non-formal education or extension education is there. Okay, now we can talk about extension education in India and its history. So the history of extension education, if we talk, it is a term that is extension, which was first time used in Britain in 1840s. Then in 1867 to 68, first extension work was given by Women's Association at Cambridge and Working Men's Club in England. After that, immediately in 10 years, Cambridge University again started using extension education, and then from Cambridge University it gone to London University in 1876. Then from that it gone to a very reputed university, that is Oxford University in 1878. Imagine, so you could imagine that how extension education was also shared between universities. That is, this is how a non-formal educational practice was flown or maybe was transferred through the formal education practice. So look at it, these are institutions of formal education, and these formal educational institutions are only sharing this particular extension education or your non-formal education. Okay, so the father of university education is called as James Stewart. So you should be knowing this. In 1880s, extension movement where universities extended the work beyond campus at the field level. Now, why these particular formal institutions like universities were sharing or maybe talking more about the non-formal education? It was because, always remember, as you all know, in our India also, ancient India, what was that concept of education? Yes, Guru Shishya Parampara or Gurukul system. What do you mean by Gurukul system? So educating not education or maybe educating students not in the closed walls, but getting out on the field, getting off the premises, getting off the hardcore infrastructures, going out, experiencing the things, and then coming to conclusions rather than thinking and postulating in our books and just being a bookworm. So in this way, extension education was taking the work, taking your experience, taking every practical point and then going out, doing those all things. So doing those things in the real time basis, and that also on the fields, on the actual field level, and then making theories and concepts out of it. That is moving from learning and then practical application. So stopping this particular which happens in formal education and then reversing the process. That is, first experience the thing, first apply the things, first do the practicals, then from those practicals, then from those experiments, then you get some outputs, you get some results, and from that results you conclude your theory, you conclude your concept or principles. Okay, so this is history of your extension education. Now land grants pattern, if you see here, university extension was established in state agricultural universities following land grants pattern of USA. Okay, so first time state agricultural universities in United States accepted extension education as a part of course following the land grants pattern. In 1960s, in Pantnagar, State Agricultural University, that is G.B. Pant University, was established, and this laid the foundation of your extension education. 63 then state agricultural universities in total were established. The statewide responsibility was given on extension education and integrated teaching research at individual department and university levels. So the establishment of State Agricultural University, this laid the foundation of learning not only through your syllabus or through your just formal education, but rather through integrated teaching. Integrated teaching in the sense, yes, you learn theory, you learn principles, concepts, but at the same time you also learn practicals, you also learn research at individual level, research at departmental level. So you go off field, you go onto the fields, you go and extend the possibility of your learning, okay, experiences, and you try to extend, that means you try to stretch out overall your learnings and apply them on the real basis, on the on-ground situations. This is what the extension education in India aimed about. We already talked about 3 types of educations. Now let us look at the difference between formal education and extension education. Okay, so formal education, if you see, it starts with theory and works up to practice. It starts with the practices and may take up the theory later. So 2 differences are there, as I told you. Formal education starts with a theory, concept or principle, and then we go to make any practical. Let's take an example of neutralization. Okay, so let's take an example of chemistry, right? If you add any acid or base, you will get a neutral solution, right? So HCl plus NaOH, you get NaCl, that is salt solution and water, right? You first read this particular neutralization reaction in your books, and then you do the experiments. That is your which test or which experiment? Which experiments you do in your pipette? Okay, so this particular experiment is again nothing but neutralization experiment. So first you read in your theory in your books, and then you do your practical. Now this particular is nothing but formal education. You do the theory, concept, and then you do practical. Whereas extension education is nothing but no, you first start with practical. You first start with practical. You first start with your on ground or on field activity, and then you follow that particular experiment, you follow that particular practical, you get the results, and from that results you make the theory later. So it's the opposite of the formal education. So students study subjects in the formal education, whereas in extension education students study problems. Okay, for example, just take an example of a particular plant. If a particular aphid is affecting, or maybe aphid is an insect, if it attacks that particular plant, and if that aphid is eating the leaves of the plant, in formal education you would be studying about this particular subject, that is entomology. In that entomology you will be learning about a particular insect named aphid, and it attacks the plants leaves, it eats the plant leaves, and then it destroys the crop. This is what you learn something, and then you will try to observe this on the field. Am I right? In formal education. What happens in extension education? Now people study not the subjects but problems. That means rather than studying the books of entomology, you would be going in the field. You will be looking at, okay, this is a particular insect which is attacking this particular plant, eating the leaves, and therefore the total crop has been on the verge of destruction or death. Okay, so what type of crop is this? What type of insect attack is this? Which is the name of this insect? From which family is it? What is its scientific name? How to prevent this insect attack? So see here, first you observe the practicality, and then from that practicality, that is, this is a problem, right? Insect attack is a problem. Then you study this problem. From this study problem, you come to a theory, that why the overall analysis, and then you give even solution to it. Okay, so this is what your extension education is. In formal, fixed curriculum is there. For example, there is a syllabus of your 10th standard, 12th standard. Am I right? Whereas in extension education, there is no fixed curriculum. There is no course for study, and people formulate their own curriculum. For example, suppose I am a farmer, right? I would have the same knowledge, or maybe even more knowledge related to aphid attacks, okay, which happens onto the crop, and I'll be also knowing some of the local methods to prevent this attack. Whereas if I compare my knowledge with a particular student, even he is a topper or a gold medal holder in the formal education, then that person will only have the knowledge which is related to fixed curriculum. Whereas formal would be having the knowledge which is outside the curriculum, that is stretched out of curriculum. So this is how extension education is the most realistic form of your education, which you don't restrict just into the books, but rather to the practical application. Authority rests with the teacher. Authority in the sense, in formal education, how much you will study, how much marks you get, that is totally dependent on teacher. Okay, authority here in extension education, it rests with people. So it rests with people in the sense what? Here overall learning and understanding capabilities and initiatives is totally based on us. For example, if I am really interested to know about crops, to know about the problems of the crops, I'll be going into the field, I'll be making analysis, I'll be making overall result, and overall I'll be trying to find out the solutions to the problems. So in this way, the authority of learning something, or overall the authority of your education, rests on that person who is trying to learn through extension education. Here the authority is at teachers. Then attendance is compulsory in context of formal education, okay, whereas here in extension education the participation is voluntary. Either if you want, it's on your discretion, if you want to join you can join, otherwise you cannot, okay. Here but in formal education attendance is compulsory, you have to attend anyways, because your institution is important than the people who are learning. Teaching is mainly vertical. What do you mean by vertical teaching? It means that there is a person which is at apex and there are persons which are at bottom, and the teaching is always top to down approach or top to bottom approach. Whereas here if you see, teaching is mainly horizontal. That means what? You learn, of course the teaching whatever happens, it happens through a group. That means people are there and they share their experiences, they share their learnings, which happen horizontally. That is sharing of the knowledge, not instruction of knowledge but sharing of the knowledge. For example, in schools, teacher teaches the student, student cannot teach the teacher, and neither student can teach students. For example, in school if you try to teach your friend, what do teacher used to say? Teacher used to say that you learn, if he doesn't understand he can ask that thing to me, I'll teach him, okay. So this vertical, just vertical, not horizontal. Whereas extension education, when we talk about, it is horizontal. Why? Because number, suppose here 50 farmers are there, 20 researchers are there, all these researchers, farmers together they will make a group and they'll start discussing with each other. So such sharing of information, this is not vertical, this is horizontal sharing, where all the people are at same level. Then more or less homogeneous audience. That means what? In first standard all the students would be, of course, with 1 or 2 years old, okay. So first standard only one specific age students are there. But if you see extension education, heterogeneous audience is there. There may be some females, there may be some males, okay. Some may be researchers, some may be agronomists, some may be agribusinessmen, some may be simple farmers, okay. Some may be laborers, right? Everybody's age would be different. So in this way, heterogeneous audience. Pre-planned and pre-decided programs, you have a perfect syllabus. And whereas extension education, now these are locally developed according to specific areas, there are no any curriculum established. Teaching is only through instructors, that is teachers here you can consider, and here teaching is through local leaders, that means people who are having experience, people who want to share the knowledge, these are there in extension education. Then now we understand the definition of extension education, okay. So let's try to understand extension education definition. Extension education is nothing but, it is an applied science consisting of content which is derived from research, and research is always based on practicality, experiments, okay. Accumulated field experiences, that means again practicality. Relevant principles drawn from the behavioral science, synthesized from useful technology into body of philosophy, principles, content, methods focused on the problems which are out of school education for adults and youth. So the definition is very huge, so try to understand. Extension education is nothing, try to understand, it is a content. Content means what? It is nothing but group or maybe postulates of knowledge, okay, some principles, okay, some theories which are derived from practical things like research, like your field experience, like your relative principles which we understand or which we gain from experience by doing things, by doing or practicality. And then what we do is that whatever we have gained these principles from, that we try to draw on from our behavioral science synthesized using technology, okay. So whatever on ground you are working, you also try to apply technology. So you identify a problem, you try to find a solution to that particular problem, and then you collate all these learnings in your philosophy, in your principles, in your content, in your methods, which are focused on the problems, which are out of your school education, okay. So for example, there may be in various agricultural books, there may be information which is related to your insect attack, pest attack, how much fertilizer to use, but actual knowledge that how to do the weed management, how to do the insect and pest management, how to use fertilizers, this will always come from your extension education. Now I'll tell you one thing, there was one story I'll tell you all which is very interesting. So there was a person who did PhD in agriculture, okay, and there was a simple farmer There was a simple farmer who was doing cropping in his agricultural field of just 1 to 2 acres. Okay, one time the PhD, whatever scholar was there or doctorate was there who was in agriculture, that scientist came to the field, and what he was doing study of how different birds, they destroy the crops, or maybe they eat the seeds, or how they affect your agricultural cropping. Okay, so he was doing the study of sowing of the seeds and how birds do attack those seeds or something like that. Okay, so he came onto the field. He had many of the seeds in his backpack. He took those seeds and he started pouring those seeds on the field. Instantly, as he was throwing those seeds on the field, many of the birds used to come. They used to come and instantly they used to eat all the seeds and they used to go away. Okay, so the scientist who was there, the doctorate agricultural specialist who was there, he was thinking that I wanted to do study, or I wanted to collect the data which is related to seeds and their germination, but these birds are not giving me only the chance to do this particular germination or do this particular cropping only. What should I do? So he was thinking only, but he was not trying, like not even getting a solution to it. So for almost 2 to 3 hours he was just throwing the seeds here and there. Birds used to come, eat those seeds, and they used to go. So at the end of 2 to 3, 4 hours, he got frustrated and he decided that he is going to leave that particular field. When he was going to leave the field only, at that moment only, farmer came in. And farmer said to him that, sir, what are you doing? Please try to tell me, I'll try to help you out. The scientist told that, what you are going to help me? I am a PhD holder. Do you know something more about agriculture than me? So the farmer says that just let me know, if I could, I will help you, otherwise we will leave it. So then the scientist tells that farmer that this is a field in which I want to sow my seeds. I have to do study of the germination process. But these birds are not giving me a chance only to sow the seed. So the farmer said that, okay, they are coming and eating your seeds. So then the scientist says that, yes, this is what is happening. So farmer says that you just stay outside this field, I'll do something. He takes the seeds from the scientist, and what he does is that he ties that particular bag of seed to his belly. In one hand he takes the seed, and other hand also he takes the seed. From one hand he throws the seed outside to the field. Okay, the birds all, they go and eat those seeds, until then he goes on sowing or planting those seeds into the field. Looking this, the scientist is very, very shocked. So he comes and he says to him that, in which research paper have you read this, that you have thrown these particular seeds outside, the birds have gone and eaten those seeds, and here you were able to sow the seed in the field. So the farmer tells him that this is what I have been doing since my childhood. I don't need to learn these things. Okay, these I have learned through my experience, not through experiments. So this is how extension education is very different from your formal education. Okay, father of extension education is J. Paul Liggins. Very, very important factual question can come up. What is the meaning of extension education? X means what? X means out. Okay, you all would be knowing axis means what. Okay, so X means what? Out. Out in the sense, suppose this is our location, X means to go out. So X means out, and tensio means stretching. So stretching out, okay, anything that is called as extension. So extension means stretching out. Father of extension education in India is K.N. Singh. Very, very important. And father of demonstration. Demonstration means what? You learn something, okay, you read something, theory, principle, anything. But demonstration is something when you practically do it. Okay, so in agriculture, demonstration is very, very important, and the father is Simon A. Knapp. Okay, then comes principles of your extension education. First is principle of interest and need. Interest in the sense that we are interested to do a particular agricultural activity, and there is also a need because there is a problem associated with that activity. Principle of cultural difference. As every area is different, every culture is different, region is different, also such practical or such on-ground situations also will be different. Principle of participation. As major of the people will participate, more and more practicality could be shared between the people. Then principle of adaptability, because this extension education is based on problems, and to find solutions of the problems you need to be adaptable. Principles of grassroots level organization, as most of the extension educations are based on the teachings which are done on ground or on the field, and that is why grassroots level organizations are very important. Principle of leadership, as there should be some pioneers who are leading a particular experiential or maybe demonstration activities. Principle of whole family, that is, it involves horizontal sharing between same people. Principle of cooperation, where people come tonight, they unite and they work towards one direction. Principle of satisfaction is nothing but here we are trying to not to gain something, but rather here we are trying to solve the problems. So solve the problems, that is why it's satisfaction. Principle of evaluation, now this particular evaluation is not based on your marks. This particular evaluation is based on how much problems we have solved. And principle of democratic approach, that is not top to bottom approach, from bottom to top approach. What is the need, what are the problems on ground, and then trying to find the solution of the same. Then objectives of extension education. Now try to understand what are the objectives. First is to assist the people to discover and analyze their problems and identify their needs. Okay, so first is to assess or analyze their problems and identify the needs. Then is to develop leadership among people and help them in organizing groups to solve their problems. So here you could understand human behavior. If you see of any individual talks about knowledge or is interested about knowledge, he is also having some intuition related to knowledge, skill, attitude, understanding, some goals he wants to achieve, some actions which he wants to follow, and confidence. Okay, so all these functions of extension education, a change in above behavior. So extension education functions why? So extension education is totally based on your experience. Extension education is totally based on your learning something on the ground, and when you are learning that, you are trying to change your human behavior. And in human behavior, what are the things you change? You change your knowledge, you try to change your skills, attitude, your understanding, your goals, action, and your confidence. Okay, so to develop the leadership among the people and help them organizing the groups, solving their problems, to disseminate research information of economic and practical importance in a way people would be able to understand it and use it, to assist people and mobilize and utilize the resources which they have or need from outside, to collect and transmit feedback information for solving management problems. So these are all objectives of extension education. There are 4 components of agricultural extension. Okay, there are 4 components. What are these 4 components? First is agricultural extension services with state government. So first is when you do it with state governments. So this is particular intermediate governmental or maybe democratic level at which particular extension can be done. Then is extension education system by ICAR, and ICAR is nothing but a research institution related to agriculture in the country. So therefore this is a research level. Then is extension program of input industries in public and private sector and NGOs, that is rural stakeholders. So this is about stakeholders. So extension education at the stakeholder level or non-government level. And special rural development programs of central and state governments, that is again this is at all the level, state, center, and even regional rural levels. So as in this, these are the 4 component in the sense 4 ways in which extension education can be done. Then is rural development programs. Now in context of extension education, rural development programs happened from 1866 to 1947, and then rural extension program happened from 1947 to 1953. So there were 2 phases. First phase is pre-independence era and second phase is post-independence era. Okay, so pre-independence stages, if you see, that is from your 1866-1947. First is scheme of rural construction at Sundarban in Bengal. The person who started is Daniel Hamilton. Okay, then 1920 Gurgaon project was started in Haryana, which is very, very important, started by F.L. Bryan. Then Sri Niketan experiment in Bengal. Now this was started by Rabindranath Ji Tagore. Okay, Then Sevagram experiment was started in Wardha, and this was started by our Mahatma Gandhi. Then Marthandan project in Kerala was started by Spencer Hatch and I think, yes, Young Men Christian Association, that is YMCA. Then Baroda village reconstruction project, very important project. This was started by Krishnamachari. Okay. Then Grow More Food campaign. It was started in 1943 and it was started by Agricultural Department of State Governments. Then Indian Village Service started by Vishar, and Firka Vikas Yojana in Madras started by Government of Madras. So these are some pre-independence era initiatives. Then post-independence era initiatives, if you see, there are at 3 levels. First is community level development, technological development, and other development programs. So first let us talk about community development program. So 1948 Nilokheri experiment, which was done by Mazdoor Manzil, and person who started is S.K. Day. 1948 Itawa pilot project, very important, by Albert Mayer. Then community development program, of course. Then NES, that is National Extension Services. Then CDB, that is Community Development Block. And of course in 1957 you could see Panchayati Raj institutions by your democratic decentralization. Okay. Then comes technological development. Now understand very carefully. Now from 1952 to till 2006, we have seen different institutions which have been established for technological developments, from Key Village Scheme to Intensive Agricultural District Program, that is IADP, then Intensive Agricultural Area Program, IAAP, then ICDP, that is Intensive Cattle Development Program, very important. This Intensive Cattle Development Program only today, here we can call it your different livestock mission. So livestock mission, livestock is there. This is from this particular Intensive Cattle Development project only. Okay. Then High Yielding Variety Program, this is your Green Revolution. Then Training and Visit Systems, T&V, this is very important in context of rural training in agriculture. Then Lab to Land project, that is LLP, very important. National Agricultural Extension Project, again very important. Technological Mission on Oilseeds, National Agricultural Technology Project, and then here you could see NAIP, National Agricultural Innovation Project. These are all the projects. You should be having all the information related to these projects and also the year associated. A very easy question could be asked that, for example, when was National Agricultural Technology Project established or maybe launched? Here you should be knowing about the year, that is 1998. Such question can be readily asked. Then it's other development. Now other development means what? What were the other developments which took place? So in 1970-71, Small Farmer Development Agency, very important. SFDA, very important agency. Then 1971 Marginal Farmers and Agricultural Laborers Program. Drought Prone, DPAP, very important, Drought Prone Area Program, which was started in 71 only, 1971. Okay. Other than that, if you see Integrated Rural Development Program, IRDP, very important, 78-79 it was started. Okay. National Rural Employment Program started in 1980s, and Jawahar Rozgar Yojana, it was started in 1989. So these are all the things which are actually started in your overall post-independence era. Now in next session we'll be discussing about extension systems by ICAR. We'll end our session here. Thank you very much. See you next time.